Howdy, welcome back to Dion Talk. In this video, I'm going to talk about a book that I found right about the time I was reaching financial independence with rental properties. I really wish I'd found it a few years earlier because this author did a really good job of spelling out almost exactly what I did, and having a roadmap would have made it a lot easier than trying to figure it out on my own. A few things are going to happen in this video. First, I'm going to talk about my favorite takeaways from this book. Second, I'm going to talk about my one critique of this book. And third, I'm going to give away an audible copy of the book, one rental at a time. That's the book I'm reviewing today. And when I reached out to the author, Michael Zuber, and I just wanted to check with him to make sure he was okay that I did a review video of his book and that I gave one away. I've been on his podcast. I've talked to him several times. He's a great guy. He actually came back with, "That's great, go ahead, be honest," but he also wants to give away a signed copy of his book. So there's going to be two winners, one that's going to get an audible copy of the book, and a second that's going to get the actual signed copy mailed to them from Michael Zuber. And I want to take a second to point out that when I was having my BiggerPockets interview with Brandon Turner and David Green, at the end when they do their famous four, the first question is, what is your favorite real estate book? I mentioned this book, and because I had written on a post-it note in front of me that his name is Michael Zuber, not Michael Gruber, because I'd messed that up in my head a few times, I read it wrong, and in the interview, I actually called him Michael Gruber. But luckily, David Green has interacted with him, been on his podcast, because the author also has his own YouTube channel, One Rental at a Time. I watch it all the time. I actually get almost all my daily news updates for financial stuff from him. But David Green corrected me as to what the right name was. So I apologize for getting your name wrong. And I will leave a link in the description below to my episode on the YouTube channel, One Rental at a Time. If this is your first time coming to my channel, Dion Talk, Financial Independence, my goal is to teach the average person that it's possible to reach financial independence and make work completely optional in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. When I first started, I was 40 years old, a single parent with 3 kids, $89,000 in bad debt that I inherited from a divorce that I didn't know existed. Well, I knew the divorce existed. I didn't know the debt existed. But within 10 years, by buying rental properties, I was able to make work optional. And now I'm completely financially independent. My kids are going to inherit a few $1,000,000. And that is why this book that I'm reviewing today, One Rental at a Time, is so important. It resonated with me on almost every point that I used to reach financial independence. Before I get to my one critique of this book, I want to talk about my favorite takeaways. My first one is that this book was written specifically for people who are working full-time jobs that want to invest in rental properties. And while currently I have a small YouTube presence, I'm pretty sure that the people watching me right now are working and want to make work optional. I figured this out when I made this video, and it was my first video that got 100 views in less than 24 hours. And just in case you haven't seen it yet, I will leave a link in the description below. The next thing I like about the way this book is written is that Mike talks about not having special systems or special access, because my strategy worked by buying properties straight off of the MLS using a real estate agent and traditional lending. I didn't have any special magic sauce that's really hard to duplicate. What I did, almost anybody can do. There are a lot of people that talk about investing in real estate, and if you've been investing for the last few years, pretty much no matter what you've done, you look like a genius because property values keep increasing. But one of the really good things about the author of this book is that Mike lived through the 2008 recession as an investor. He's been investing for over 15 years. And the thing that was really cool about the way he did it is that he was able to survive by adjusting his strategy based on what was going on in the financial and real estate markets. Before investing in real estate, I was a police officer. I was actually laid off in 2008 when the recession hit. And one of the things that drew me into real estate was I was tired of losing my sources of income due to things outside of my control. But one of the things I learned as a police officer was that you do not form an opinion and then look for evidence to back it up. In law enforcement, you're trained to look at the evidence and then form an opinion. And this applies to investing in real estate. In One Rental at a Time, Mike breaks down step by step the phases of what he went through as the recession was going, as the housing crash was happening, and as his strategies adjusted to make sure that he would survive financially. It's possible that you're like me and you didn't start investing in real estate until after the housing crash of 2008. But here's an example of how I've had to adjust my strategy based on the evidence. In order to make sure that I could handle working full-time, being a single parent, and investing in real estate and managing tenants, I moved from my house into an apartment and rented out the house. This would let me test out the waters without being fully committed. I rented the house to a friend, and it was a nightmare, and I don't ever want to talk about that or explain that again, but once I got my systems in place and I got a good tenant and I realized that I could handle this, my first goal was to find another single-family house, purchase it with an owner-occupied loan, move in, live there for at least a year, and rinse and repeat that, as through about 10 years or so, I'd have 5 to 10 rental properties. But the housing market in my area had started to recover, and single-family houses cost too much to make any profit. They wouldn't cash flow as a rental. In the book, One Rental at a Time, Mike calls these alligators. You won't survive very long investing in real estate if you have a lot of alligators chewing on your legs. But in a BiggerPockets forum, I found out that small multifamily, duplexes, triplex, fourplex, have exactly the same lending options as a single family house. And you can house hack it. And I wouldn't have to wait a year to rent out one of the units. I could buy a duplex, move in, and rent out the other side. So that's what I did. And soon, I'm going to make a video in the tradition of epic rap battles of real estate investing, where I talk to my 2 friends, single family rental and multifamily apartment complex, and where I let them point out the pros and cons to each style of investing. But not today. Towards the end of his book, Mike talks about 2 more things that I want to cover. The first one is that in 2018, he set a goal of reaching 10,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel by the end of 2020, which he did. So congratulations on that. That's a huge milestone. And as you can see here, on March 1st, 2021, One Rental at a Time has 15,700 subscribers. That is a lot of people benefiting from the knowledge that Mike is sharing. And my last, final favorite takeaway from the book, One Rental at a Time, is the order in which Mike changed his investing strategies. In the Facebook groups, like the official BiggerPockets real estate group or the real estate rookie group, I try to answer as many questions as I can when I have the knowledge. I stay in my lane though. I haven't done a burr or a flip or wholesaled. I understand those strategies, but not good enough to where I can actually give good advice. But when it comes to investing in real estate, like house hacking or small multifamily or traditional lending, then I try to help out when I can. Sometimes this is by answering questions in a post. Sometimes it's by making a post, in an actual Dion Talk in Facebook. One of the reasons I actually made this channel and started making these videos is because I wanted to be able to answer some of the most common questions in a short format. But in the BiggerPockets forums and in the Facebook groups, I often hear new investors asking how they can get started flipping properties so they can generate the capital so they can invest in rental properties, which is a viable strategy and it's worked for a lot of people. But it's super risky. When you're first starting out and you haven't built the momentum yet and don't have the cash flow, if you miscalculate an ARV, an after repair value, or if you miss the timing on how your hard money is going to need to be refinanced by a certain date, you can delay, postpone, or stop yourself from being able to invest in real estate for years or possibly ever. So what I really like is how Mike, towards the end of One Rental at a Time, talks about how once he had his systems in place and he had the cash flow from rental properties and he had a good network, then he got into flipping. And his strategy is successfully flipping to investors. So to be clear, I'm not saying that flipping is not a good thing and that a lot of people don't make a lot of money on it. I'm saying that it might not be the best strategy to start out with. This is what I'm going to use to give away the Audible version and Mike's signed copy of One Rental at a Time. Because I like to confuse people who haven't made it this far in the video, in the comments below, please leave just the name of your favorite fictional character. Mine would be Corwin of Amber, but this will give me a chance to learn a little something about the type of listeners that I have. I will reply to each comment with a number in the order that they came, and when I roll the dice, that's who's going to win these books. And at the beginning of this video, I said that I was going to point out my one critique with One Rental at a Time. And that is, as much as I like Mike, and I love his content, and I think it's helping a lot of people, I really think Mike should have narrated this book himself. I don't like the voice actor that they chose. Mike does a really good job on his YouTube channel. He's got a voice, it carries really well, and he knows the content. He would know when to put in the right tone and inflection and apply the right amount of emotion to what he's trying to say. That's my only critique I can come up with. Again, my goal is to help the average person realize that it's possible to make work optional within 10 years or less. And from what I know about him, it really seems like that's Mike's goal too. I hope I made it worth your time clicking on this video today. If you liked it, if you thought you got anything out of it, hit like, hit subscribe, share it with a friend because maybe they need to hear about this book too. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.